think there's anything different on the income side from previous year's returns. Generally, I could say that co-op grants from the co-op group nationally are nearly always unrestricted because we don't ask for specific things from them usually, or they just give the money without asking for the money to be accounted for with a return at the end of a project or something like that. So we put them down on this line here, on line 1011, and there may be other unrestricted grants. Moving down the page, the expenses side, fairly straightforward. Most groups have to hire halls for their group nights, and they might buy equipment. Materials and refreshments are generally the things for group nights. Bits of material for craft and cooking or whatever you're doing. Admin is usually fairly limited for most groups. The group registration fees are fairly straightforward. Some groups pay for some of their membership, so that goes into this next line. And then we like to, you'll see that there's various items where we need to know if you're paying money to Woodcraft Folk. And these group registrations and individual memberships and insurance, and further down, camps and residentials paid to Woodcraft Folk centres, and then further down, Folk Assembly, and Folk Supply. This is because when your district accounts get put together with all the other accounts within Woodcraft Folk, your payments to National Office or to a centre get cancelled out by them receiving it as income, and the two have to be matched against each other and removed from the overall turnover. Unfortunately, it's one of accounting's requirements to not overstate your income and expenditure by not cancelling those figures against each other. Any questions about that? I'm sure you are all there, but I'm not getting any response.
No, I'm reading messages, and I'm getting messages coming through saying no questions, and they are listening.
Great. What else have we got on this page? So most people's bulk of their costs are things like the group nights costs and the camps and other camps. So that's what most figures from districts come into those headings. So the total receipts less the total payments gives you the net surplus and deficit on line 1054. And then when I in December, I sent every district a personalized spreadsheet of their with the previous year's history and this blank page for 2018 at the bottom. And you should, in line 1055, have your opening balances from previous years showing up because they've come down from the page above. This line on line 892 comes down as the balances on line 1055. And you can see up at the top here, there's a little formula, which is where they're coming from. And therefore, the movement for the year, surplus or deficit for the year, plus whatever you had from the previous year, should give you the balance at the end of the year. And the crucial thing is that balance carried forward should match the amount of money you've got in the bank and in cash holdings. I'll just jump to the bottom of the spreadsheet. So the figures here come from here, come from 1056. And they should match. So this total of assets, bank accounts and petty cash, that total should match the balance of the accumulated surplus. And it also means that if you've got a surplus of £100 in the year, your assets should have gone up by 100. Or if you've got a overspend, a deficit for the year of £50 or whatever, then your assets will have gone down by the same amount. And what I try and ask you to do is get those balances. So this figure along this pink line here, 11140, is not got any figures in it. Should be blank. Should be nil. I'm just wondering whether we've got an example I can show you actually. Have we got an example on the spreadsheet here? No, we don't provide a worked example, do we? Oh, yes, we do. Here we are. There's one from 2011 here. Yeah, this is an old one, but it's the same. Some of the lines numbering, the definitions of what we want to know about are different. But you've got the same thing. You've got a £220 surplus on unrestricted, and 100 surplus on restricted. So 320 for the year added to what you brought forward of 820 should give you 1140. And in this example, it didn't balance. Well, that's not very clever, is it? I'll have to work on this worked example. It's not good enough. They must have had another bank account with the balance in it of 300. Hold on. And then it would have worked. So anyway, sorry about that, but I think we need a worked example that's a bit later than 2011 as well, so we'll have to put one up on the screen, on the website. Back to the example, the template we've got held on the website already. The other main thing is the bank account sometimes is the bank balance on the bank statement may not be exactly the same as it should be when all entries have been cleared. So you may have issued a check, if those districts are still issuing checks, may have issued a check which hasn't actually cleared the bank by the end of December. So if, say, the balance in the bank account was so the bank balance in the bank account was 1,500, and maybe £200 check minus 200. Maybe that is what your accounting records are showing should be the balance in the bank, and this adjustment makes it adjust to that figure. Is that that's what is called reconciling the bank, if you like. That's the technical expression. So in this example, we have reduced the balance to the figure that it would be if all entries had cleared. And you may have banked some money on the 31st that hasn't actually, or in December, which hasn't actually appeared on the bank statement. So if that was the case, you would put it in the late credit line of, say, another £20 or whatever, and then adjust it like that. Right, I'll just stop a minute, see if there's any queries on that little lot. Okay, no questions from me, I see. Great. Right, just going back to this section in the middle, we need to have information about the restricted grants. And again, if your group, your district had grants unspent at the end of 2017, carried over into 2018, in other words, if you had a such a position, then the figures would appear on should appear on your personalised spreadsheet here as the amount of the original grant and the balance brought forward from the previous year on the next line. And then you add whatever received in the year, less what you spent on that from that grant in the year. And at the end of the year, you may have nothing carried forward, or you may have some figures still left, not carried forward. And then we need to know a bit more about who gave the grant. Make sure it's which group or district it was actually awarded to, and the purpose. And then just tell us if it was restricted, and whether there's documentation is available. Well, for that may be necessary for the award giving body to ask for it, or it could be our auditors want to see it. The auditors I'll come back to, but they do look at a few districts every year. I'll come back to that. So this information, hopefully the balance is brought forward, if there are any, are up here, and some districts add more columns to this. I can tell you that some of them go mad with their grants, getting them in, and well done for them, but it all has to be accounted for separately. And the total here, the total amount remaining unspent in this box here, that one, should be the same as this figure here, this box here, because that's the balance of the restricted column, and then that's the balance of the analysis of those grants. Okay, and of course the total payments should be the same as the total spent in the year. So, any questions on grant information? When you send back your district return, we need this spreadsheet, and we need the bank statement at the end of the year. I need a copy of it, or a photo, or a scan, as at the 31st of December for each bank account. And some districts have several bank accounts, because some districts have one bank account for each group, and other districts have one bank account for all the groups and the district combined. And then the groups just deal with cash locally and hand over any checks, and the district deals with all the banking through one bank account. It depends on your custom locally. It doesn't matter to us as long as it's all accounted for. Back to the question of the auditors. Yes, the auditors, strictly speaking, could ask for every district to provide further information, but in practice they select about a dozen districts each year and ask them to provide a bit more information, accounting records, copy bank statements for the whole year, that sort of thing. And if there's a grant, and a restricted grant in particular, they'll ask for information about that. They may also ask you about your procedures, how the accounting is done in the district, and whether you ever get people to sign blank checks, which I hope you never do. Mostly it's the thing moving to bank transfer nowadays anyway, because it's so much easier. But then the district should have a system of the bank requiring two people to authorize each transfer, and that's possible with most banks. Certainly the co-op provide a system for doing that, and that's essential, because moving away from having two check signatories to bank transfers still requires you to have two authorizations for each transfer. And the reason is to make everything clear and transparent, and also to protect you from accusations that things are not clear and being done right. If you're sharing the work with somebody else independent of you, then it's more clear that things are being done properly. Okay, I think that's all I had to say on audit. Any more questions on that side of things? Right. Now, what other problems do we have with?
Richard.
Yes.
We've had one question in, actually, which is, when is the deadline for submitting the form?
Okay. It is Monday the 15th of February 2019, if that is a Monday. Anyway, it's the 15th. It's always the 15th of February, no matter what day of the week it is. Oh, it isn't a Monday, it's a Friday. Oh, well. Obviously didn't bother to look. Anyway, it's always the 15th of February. And ideally, I've had a few in already. And if you're ready to send it in before then, do, because I can just get on with it. If they all arrive on the 15th, then it takes me a bit of time to work through them all. So don't be surprised if you don't get an immediate response. But ideally, go for it for that date. Just going back to the example where a district has groups which don't have their each individual bank account, they will be handling some more well, all groups handle some cash, but in the example I'm giving you where the group has no bank account, there'll probably be a bit more cash being handled locally. The group's treasurer there should be a group treasurer for every group, and they should keep track of subs being collected each week, but in cash or commitments being made to pay them to the district bank account. And they also should keep track of any expenses on materials and so forth, and they should provide that information to the district treasurer. And ideally, well, the easiest way to do it is every term, because normally things don't run through the holidays for group nights and things, although camps do that. They're usually dealt with differently, separately. So in Cambridge, we have a system of each group providing a return to the group district treasurer each term of the cash and any checks that have been handed over, and that is they're collected in and they're included in the accounts here. So in that case, one of these columns could be used for each of the groups in a district, showing the cash movements, and monies handed over to the district would you can put them in as negative figures on the receive, this line 1019. So paid out of as a negative to this group would appear as an income to the district. The district would have its own column here then. So that would be a district column, and then this would be the group columns, and then the monies transferred from the group to the district would be a negative figure here and a positive figure there. So minus 20. So they sort of cancel each other out, and that doesn't appear there. That's a little nicety. Right, well that's all I can think of on the return. We could look at the, unless there's any more questions on that, we could look at the accounting records which we suggest you use the spreadsheet for accounting records, or we could finish. Unless you wanted to say anything, Roland.
No, no, I think that sums it up. Would people like to see a bit more about the other resources that are available? We've got, and we have an hour, so we can carry on till 8. But you probably have things you'd like to be doing, or dinner to eat, or anything. So it would be interesting to know, those of you on the call, how many of you have seen this accounts book spreadsheet that Richard's opened up, just out of interest, on the website? How many of you, well, assuming you're treasurers, how many of you are using it? Just out of interest, nothing more. So it seems like it's quite new to people. So yeah, maybe useful to have a look at. Thanks for responding.
Okay, well, this is a spreadsheet for a worked example of a spreadsheet for a bank account run by a group or district. And this grey area in grey is all the receipts, money received during the year, donations, camp donations, and other events, and grants received. I've made this, I'll just make the screen a bit bigger. Yeah, that's better. And you can see that that's the totals shown for the receipts. And on the other side, doesn't want me to hide it. How do I hide it? That's better. You're still there, I hope.
Yeah, still here.
Okay. And on the other side here, we've got the same thing for the expenditure side. And it's fairly straightforward. The payments are made to, who the payment's made to, what it's for, and the date of the payment. Because people are not always using checks anymore, we give each item a reference number, even if it's a bank transfer. The bank transfers don't have reference numbers on the bank account, but you need to allocate one for it. And then so you can write the reference number on the paperwork that you keep in a file for all expenditure. So the reference on the spreadsheet, in this example P7, will be written on the bit of paper in the expenditure file. We always used to put the check numbers on, but as I say, they don't always exist now if you're doing bank transfers. Then you put the total figures, or let me just do that a second. If you put a figure in here, let's get it down here. You put £25 in there, it will pick it up and put it in the total column. It'll also put it in the bank statement column. And when you get your bank statements, you can tick them off on the bank statement and delete them from this bank statement column here, so that you know it's cleared and you don't have to it's no longer awaited, it's already come through. The total of the bottom here, the total of the columns, this is the total of the column above. and this one here is the totals of the columns across the page, and making sure they're exactly the same. This total is carried over to the left over here in the cell D44. So if I put another figure in, you can see it changes. That figure and that figure changed. So then the total income receipts less the total payments gives you a movement of excess payments. So in this case, it's excess receipts over payments actually. And then you add the surplus at the beginning of the year and you get the balance of what should be the balance on the bank statement. If the balance on the bank statement is different from that, it's because you've got these outstanding checks waiting to be cleared. And the total of this column comes over to here and nets off, takes it off the bank balance and gives you the adjusted cash book balance, which is the same as the cash book itself. So it's a simple way of keeping track of making sure your bank statement agrees with your accounting records. And that's one of the fundamental things about bookkeeping and accounting, that you always make sure your bank is in line with your accounting records. You'll probably find you need to add more columns, which is simple enough. You just add an extra column in for copy the total. Copy the totaling over and give it a heading at the top. And the same over here. You can add new columns on the right as well. If you oh yes, these two yellow columns are just for the restricted, just to identify clearly the restricted items. But you don't need to highlight things if you don't want to. If you make a mistake and type in a figure in the total of say £56, but over here put £65, because you've overtyped this, it's going to be different from that. But this column on the right shows you that there's a difference between the figures in the analysis from the figure in the total. The easiest thing is not to overtype it in this column, but just to enter the figures here and let them fill themselves in. You can always correct that by copying that cell down into the cell below, which I do by pulling down the little black dot in the right hand corner. So there's nothing very spectacular about that really. This spreadsheet has 3 pages. This is the bank account page. There's also a cash account page, which showing you how a group or a district can keep a track of its cash payments, receipts and payments. So that's this cash account page of the spreadsheet. The only complication is when you pay money from cash into the bank, it needs to be shown as a payment, of course. And then that one on this is in January or February, somewhere around January 2015, should show up as a receipt on the bank statement here, on the cash book page here, the bank account page. So those two should match up. That total of the bank should match up with the total here, except it hasn't got a total in there at the moment. It should have. So that's the normal sort of things: cash received from subs, payments out for materials. And finally, the other page is the summary of it all. And this you can use as well if you want. Each of the cells here picks up in the formula box at the top a cell from the bottom of one of the columns in the bank cash book. So this one here is looking at cell K5 on the bank cash book. So K5, can't we? K5. Where is it? Oops. Oh, it says it's K5, doesn't it? Odd. Oh, well, yes. Because grants normally are shown individually, I've shown it picking up an individual figure, whereas some of these other headings, like group subs, that will be from the bottom of the column. So that'll be bank column cell F43, and it also picks up the cash from the subs in H35 of the cash account. So that cell there has got the two from the bank cash book page and from the cash account page. So this summarizes things. Of course, if you add a column here, a new column, you need to include it here as well as an item being picked up from the other page. If you're used to spreadsheets, that's fairly straightforward, I would imagine, to recognize how you would pick up figures from a different page. And on the expenditure side, the same, you're looking at things normally from the bottom of the columns on the bank cash book and cash account pages. But sometimes there are individual items that you might want to put in. And in this case, the balances brought forward were from the previous year's accounting. This example is just reporting to the middle of 2015. It wasn't to the end of the year, and that's why it says at the top for the year so far. Right. Any questions on all that lot?
No written questions.
No, where's it gone? I seem to have lost the control page of the webinar. Anyway, you tell me what's going on.
I think if you click on the little flower symbol.
That one.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing happens.
Well, yes, no. Well, in which case, I can tell you what's going on. So there are no questions, but Noam was just saying the accounting spreadsheet is useful.
Yeah.
So it's probably worth saying that that is on the website. As you've seen, that's where Richard's found it, and you can either search for those documents with words like account spreadsheet, or there is on the home page of the website in the main menu, there's a green option or a green button, fundraising and treasurers, and if you click on that, then it takes you. So this is a page that it's not exclusively for treasurers and accounts and things. It also covers fundraising. But if you see the middle option is local treasurers, Treasurers Hub, and if you click on that, then that takes you to the page that Richard's on now, which pretty much lists all of these kind of resources that you might need. So starts with the Treasurer's Handbook at the top, and then you can see in Keeping Records, there's a link to the page with the accounting spreadsheet we were just looking at. And if you go further down, there's gift aid and also information about the financial return. Yeah. Someone just saying they hadn't clicked on it before. So yeah, glad to draw it to your attention. And we're always trying to make the information a bit more accessible, which can be challenging. We have to use the sort of technology that we have for the time being, but hopefully it's there. And if you have problems or suggestions for presenting the information, then it's really helpful to hear from you. So now may be a good time to let us know, but also otherwise you can always get in touch with the office. You probably know the email address, info@woodcraft.org.uk. That's probably your best bet to contact with comments. But for the financial return itself, there's a specific email address which you're probably already aware of, which is returns@woodcraft.org.uk. And messages to that email address go to Leanne in the office and straight to Richard. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to show us, Richard.
No, I don't think so.
So if there aren't any further questions now, I think probably now is a good moment to say thank you. Well, first of all, thank you, Richard, for giving all of that explanation again. It's really useful, and your time's really appreciated. Taking this time on top of doing the putting together all of the spreadsheets on top of that. And thank you for joining the webinar. It should have been recorded, so it should be put up on the website, so you'll be able to look back again. And yeah, just to repeat what I said, if you have any questions regarding the financial return itself, you can contact Richard at returns@woodcraft.org.uk. And if you have any more general ideas or questions, then you're probably best to contact Leanne in the office. Hope she won't mind me saying that, which is info@woodcraft.org.uk. But unless anyone has any questions,
if it's about the return, you can write it to returns at, and Leanne and I will both get it.
Yeah. Well, in that case, I'll say thank you very much for joining, and we'll bring the webinar to an end. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Thanks, then.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.